Actually, you know what? I'll take the next one because I've been putting mine off.
Sure. What is
weeks. So my topic this week is I guess challenging art. Like, I'll tell you what brought me here, and then I'll explain the question.
Like, is it art?
The new season of Twin Peaks just started. And I don't know if anyone's been watching or if anyone watched the old Twin Peaks. Mm-hmm. But it was already relatively challenging material for its time in terms of what television was at the time. Essentially, it's a mystery who killed Laura Palmer. David Lynch is, as one of the writers and one of the creators and director of a few of the episodes, really never intended to resolve that mystery. He left at the end
walked away.
Yeah.
Because they wanted him to resolve.
Well, the pressure from the studio was like, no, we need to keep people interested by the end of the first season. We want to know. They still didn't because they had left no time to resolve a mystery like that. You don't find out until the second season, I don't think. But anyways, without any spoilers, it's a challenging piece of art. It came back, and it's even more perplexing and challenging than anything that's ever been on TV, in my opinion. It's very Lynchian. If you watch David Lynch, especially his old short films, it's very challenging art. Not necessarily what I would say is entertaining. It is entertaining for me, but I don't think the average person would find it entertaining. It's challenging. You have to think about it. Even if you're thinking about it, some of it might just be intentionally obtuse and hard to pin down. So my question is, do you enjoy when art in any facet challenges you? As a viewer to participate and try and unravel, or even just to be uncomfortable and sit in that discomfort, or do you prefer to just
I think that's what art's all about, is you should create art to challenge people and make them think.
Well, lots of stuff we call art is not. I mean, my answer is very much informed by this Glee songbook I'm staring at as you're talking. But yes, I need my
Hannah
art.
Montana.
I need my art to be slightly challenging. But lots of people are going to want to call the TV show Glee art. Yeah. Mm. But I mean,
and by the definition of what we usually call art, as a society, not necessarily from a dictionary standpoint, but art, it's pretty broad, right? Yeah. It could be almost anything.
Well, isn't that maybe we'll say that's the difference between good art and bad art? Is good art sort of challenges you, makes you think outside the box?
I would even say it comes down more to accessibility. So in avenues that I understand and that I'm into, I'm going to appreciate something challenging a lot more than something that's really new to me and that I'm having a hard time grasping in the first place, or I'm not used to the formula or the format. So that when you throw something that's that complex at me, I may not appreciate it as much as somebody who's already expecting the traditional.
Mm-hmm. So sort of like a lot of people who are very surface interested in music don't necessarily find anything appealing about jazz music.
Exactly.
That's a very good point. Sometimes it's your familiarity with the expectations of a medium that make challenging work that much more interesting. Like watching Twin Peaks, when in the new season there was a segment where the film it just kept stuttering and going back and forth, and it was intentionally weird and uncomfortable to watch. And for someone who just wants TV and doesn't want to think about what goes into making it or the conventions of television, may not find that interesting at all, and in fact might find it off-putting because the convention is there because it's easy to consume. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But so it's almost the same with jazz. It's intentionally challenging, right? Or
progressive metal. That immediately comes to mind. Is you see those metalheads that they're addicted and they have no idea why anyone else wouldn't appreciate this as much as they do. But meanwhile, somebody that doesn't really understand all of the tonality that goes into it and all of the things that go into the background, or even enjoy that kind of stuff per se, you come into that and show that to them, and they'll go, well, what is this? Isn't that, it could be the best thing in the world to somebody, and to somebody else.
That's noise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there is a cognitive bias that extends beyond art and anything that has been shown that people who it's a bias to knowledge, where you think because you know something or because you've learned something, you don't remember how hard it was to understand or learn something, and you don't understand why someone else wouldn't understand it.
That's true.
And it's a proven across the board every type of knowledge.
I always just assume that everybody knows the same shit that I know.
And everybody
You know,
does.
like, yeah.
Even if they don't know that they do that.
Yeah.
It's a proven cognitive bias that everyone has that isn't because of some malfunction on our part. It's just, why would your brain hold on to all the information about how hard it was to learn music when you already know music?
I feel like as instructors, you guys understand that better than you realize, though.
Well, and I think that's why we're able to talk about it succinctly, because that's one thing that I definitely noticed when you're breaking things down is you really appreciate the subtlety in things. You know, even with beginner drum students, every once in a while, even just the way that they play tonally, you know, you'll hear it and you'll go, wow, you know, that's such a simple beat, but it sounds really nice this way, you know, and it's really interesting to really pick things apart from such a, you know, small level.
Yeah, actually, that's one of the greatest values of teaching, is that you learn so much more about how you learn.
Yeah.
Oh,
and some things you can just do. Some things come more naturally to you that you can just sort of do them inherently or intrinsically. But if you have to teach, if you have to break it down so that a 7 or 8 year old will understand it, it helps you understand why you do what you do, how you do what you do, right? So yeah, it's valuable. For sure.
So
is this still on topic?
Is art more than intention? I mean, I'm having flashbacks, not those kind of flashbacks, to my nights at Nuit Blanche in Toronto, and the argument that hilariously happens the whole night is, well, is it art? But is it art? And the answer that I decided on immediately was, if somebody did it on purpose and it's an expression of something, even if they're not sure what it's an expression of, if it's intentional, then it's art.
But does somebody have to be on the receiving end of that and go, wow, and for it to become, or is that the spark that makes it art?
I think, actually, to quote you from an earlier podcast, I think it's not. It comes from you, and or either you or Tom were saying that early on.
Yeah,
it's
maybe that was me. I don't know. My opinions change a lot.
They should.
As the creator, I think what you or Tom might have actually said is that as the creator, you experience your art even as you're creating it. Yeah. So that's a great hard point. There's no tree falling in the forest example.
Right.
And no piece of art is ever really done because the main purpose of creating art, or maybe that's debatable, but a large portion of it is being consumed, right? Like that's what art ends up being for, is for consumption, and consumption is another addition to what you're making. So if your art is challenging, just to bring it back around, the consumption is not necessarily what gives a value, but it is the last step. Like if art was created in a vacuum, then sure, it's done, and that's all that there is to it. But for example, Twin Peaks, it's not in a vacuum. People then have to consume it and apply their own opinions on the medium and on that, especially since it's a revival, on what it was before and how it's evolved and how all the people look older now, and I didn't see enough from that person. That stuff gets applied on top of that. It's not just about how he made it or what he made or what his vision was.
They don't just completely ignore it like they did in Wet Hot American Summer.
Oh, more than you would expect from a show that left on such a cliffhanger. Like he's pretty well addressing exactly where the show left off, while ignoring so much of it. Like 90% of the first episode isn't even in Twin Peaks.
But is there not an underlying intention that they're going for the whole time?
There is, but it's David Lynch, so it's very, very obscure and hard to hold on to. It's very ethereal.
His intentionality is probably just making people go, what?
His intention tends to be to challenge you as a viewer, right? Like that's more or less what it has been throughout his career.
Which you don't expect that from, to go all McLuhan on it. It's a cold media, right? It's cold medium. Excuse me. It's television traditionally is just to beam ideas into your head.
It's a platform to deliver advertisements, right?
Yeah. And I wanna tie this into Bob's topic a little bit and ask this question. And there's probably already somebody's working on a legal precedent already, so maybe we can find an answer from an IP lawyer. If I write an AI program and it creates some art, who owns the copyright to that art?
I believe you do. If you own the software, then you own the art.
Do I deserve to?
It doesn't matter really, because if you make something in Photoshop, Photoshop doesn't own it.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
So the AI, still boils down to a tool. I'm empathetic maybe to a fault already, but I do really want to map like human rights right away onto anything. As soon as you guys want to use it, like the word intelligence, I want to give it inalienable human rights.
I feel
which is dangerous.
I have
the
the same
side.
inclination. I think that's a human inclination. It's the same reason everything looks like a face. The reason cars look like a face. So that we care for them more instead of just being a brown box of metal that we drive around in. Sure. It has a personality, so that we give it shit about it.
Well, there's a reason that all of these really high-level programmers and guys in the tech industry are worried about the future of AI, because if you put too much intention into it, that could be if their self-preservation becomes more important than our preservation, then all of a sudden that's where you get all that sci-fi movie stuff.
Yeah. Well, no, let's. I so badly want to continue that conversation, but let's move on to the next topic.
Is there a computer in a Faraday cage in a basement somewhere that's self-aware and it's just trapped in there?
Probably.
And it goes to bed every night screaming?
A Faraday cage. I'm
Well,
picturing like those, those guys who have like the Faraday suits that like make music with Tesla coils.
Well, you know what
I'm
I
just
mean.
picturing one of those like
Isn't
with
that
an
how you
AI
do
in the
it?
middle, like
You'd need to,
the Phantom of the Opera.
Wouldn't you use a Faraday cage? You'd use something to completely isolate the computer from any sort of electrical signal so that it couldn't
transmit itself.